Alright, day 2, 58 kilometers on the motorcycle as I start out on day 2, and I'm still liking it. That's a good sign, I guess. Now, I've gone about 55 kilometers on this tank of gas, and we'll see there's no fuel gauge on the display, so we'll have to see how far I go on a tank of gas. They has a 9.1 liter tank, and I'm getting, let's take a look here, trip time, average fuel is about 5 liters per 100 kilometers, which means I should get not quite 200 kilometers on a tank. It's not bad when you're in the city and there's gas stations everywhere, but if I get out on a long drive with my brother on the Valkyrie, my dad on a Goldwing, I'm not sure that they're going to want to stop every 100 kilometers whenever there's a gas station. That's okay, they'll just have to put up with it. First thing I did with this bike when I got home yesterday is I took off the stupid warning symbols here on the tank. There was one down the side, and sorry Blackfoot, I took off your stickers as well. I don't like putting stickers on something. It's like putting a sticker on a piece of art saying warning, stickers may inhibit your view of the art. It's just stupid. It gets in the way. It takes away the look of the bike. So I took them off. A little bit of heat from the heat gun, and peeled right off. It was actually quite easy. There's a couple of really good and easy instructions on the internet. A little bit of a heat gun, and comes right off. Little WD-40 to clean it up, and then polish it up with whatever wax I had, some kind of spray on wax. And I think it looks much better. I don't like those things on my tank. It's one of the first things I always take off. Don't know if I call it a modification, but I get those stickers off your tank so you can see what the bike is supposed to look like. Another thing I've been thinking about this bike and why I chose it, and it comes down to, I think the experience I wanted was a cruiser seating position, but I didn't want the presence of a large cruiser. I look at sitting on the Valkyrie, or even on the Audace, and they have a strong presence under you, and a lot of people like that, and that's great. But on this bike, I don't necessarily feel like I'm sitting on a huge piece of machinery. I just kind of feel like I'm out on the road. Again, because my field of vision here largely doesn't see the bike, and because I can't necessarily feel it with my legs, it's not a large piece of equipment that I have to pull through traffic, that I have to maneuver or work it. I just go where I want, and the bike kind of follows behind me or underneath me, as it were. And that's kind of what I was looking for, was something that I didn't necessarily have to work too hard to get it to go where I wanted to. And this bike really goes, I just think, and I'm going there. It's very natural for me. It's very slender, it's very light, and that's what I wanted in my bike. And that's why I chose this. So I think a good choice for exactly what I wanted, but I also want an Adachi, so who wouldn't? I am going to look for a windshield. It's probably going to take me some time to find one. Most of the windshields that I've seen are they cover the whole front equally, and I really like the way they've mounted the instrumentation on here. It's very asymmetrical, and I want to get a windshield that embraces that and celebrates that asymmetry a little bit. But most of them are more symmetrical and mask that up once you get it on there. So it'll take me some time. I'll search around and see what I can't find. But I like the way that this gauge is off to the side. It's not right in the center. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfect symmetry on the bike. I've noticed going around corners as well, I haven't scraped the pegs at all. Again, I'm driving conservatively because of the break-in period, but I haven't even accidentally scraped, and I've hit a few corners going fairly nicely. It's just the pegs are up high enough that I've got lots of clearance to take those corners as fast as I really want to. So I'm liking that as well. I've got lots of room to play on the corners. It feels really good going around those corners. It's nice to get out of a car finally. This also is my first actual practical ride on the bike. I'm actually going from home to work, stopping at my other location to just drop some stuff off, and this is the kind of typical use that I'll be using the bike for. It's nice to be able to see how I can handle being on the bike, endurance-wise, how the bike handles that kind of a trip. It's the actual time of day that I'm typically driving in, so the traffic flow should be about regular for me going to work. It's a very good practical day. The other thing that I wanted to just touch about that struck me when I was buying the bike is there's a 2-year manufacturer warranty on the bike, and I asked them how many kilometers it maxed out at, and I'm used to car manufacturers that say, yeah, it's got a 5-year warranty but only 60,000 kilometers. And like, who drives their car only 60,000 kilometers in 5 years? Seriously. And they said, no, you can drive as many kilometers as you want. And I immediately thought of my son Parker, and he would definitely say, challenge accepted. And so I'm thinking 2 years, as many kilometers as I can possibly put on this while the warranty is still on. That sounds like a really fun challenge to me. So I'm going to drive it to work and back as much as I possibly can every day, and hopefully get out on it on my days off and get somewhere other than work. But I should be able to put on as many kilometers as I can. I'm not going to give an estimate because I'll probably fall short. I like to be optimistic and say I can put on 20,000 kilometers in the next 2 years, but we shall see. We shall see. Maybe I'll take it down south in the winter, drive it around with my brother. He likes to get around Vegas a little bit with his bike. That'd be a nice little trip in the winter. I'll see if this can keep up. Ultimately, it is quite a bit smaller bike than what my brother and my father drive. They're on 1500s and 1800s, and they're quite a bit bigger and more suitable for those kind of rides. As soon as we hit traffic, though, I'll catch up and lose them in the traffic, if there is traffic where they go. Like I said, the tank size is something that I'm concerned about. Getting a out into the mountains here, there's not just a gas station every 150 kilometers, and so it may be a little tough to do any kind of touring up here in the mountains. I'll have to plan my trips well and make sure that I can get enough gas. I did see at one point that there was an accessory for this bike that was it was like a saddlebag, but it was a jerry can. And at the time I was like, oh yeah, why would you need extra gas? But I'm starting to think that, yeah, now that I do the numbers, extra gas probably is a good idea if you're going to do any touring. I travel light, so just my backpack for anything that I need, but I might need that extra gas on there for when I go and tour. I'll take a look into that as well. The other thing I was looking into yesterday is the multimedia platform is not standard on these bikes. It's something you got to buy afterwards, and so you have to buy the module, the multimedia package module, and then you have to also get a mounting kit, which is different for each bike, of course, because of the wire harness is different, and the way the mounting bracket is going to be different for each bike. I haven't been able to find anything about how to install it, except that it comes with instructions on how to install it, or that people have brought it into their factory, into the dealership to get it installed. I tend to like to do as much as I can on my car and my motorcycle by myself, so I'd like to give it a try. And it seems like on some of the earlier models, the 2014s to 15s, they're having issues installing it because the brackets and the wire harnesses don't quite fit. And but I'm pretty sure that by now, they were saying 2016 they should have that figured out. I'm seeing on the list right from Moto Guzzi that the wire harnesses have several different options, so you just got to make sure you get the right one. Should just snap in and plug in. But that's something that I definitely want to get, is that multimedia interface. I think that'd be some neat information that I want to get. It's going to cost about $450 by the time I get the mounting kit and the media package console. So that's going to come along. Maybe this winter I'll get it and install it and play with it come next season. One thing I've noticed here just on this trip alone, I've hit the high beams indicator over here a couple of times and flipped it on by accident, and that could be just because I'm getting used to new gloves, and it could be just the placement of where my hand is. This morning I didn't notice that yesterday, but I'm noticing I'm looking down at my console and I see the blue light on for high beams. I'll just park right up here today. I'm just in and out. This bike being so light, it's actually really quite easy to drive slow. I know nobody likes to drive slow, but for me it's somewhat of a necessity. Getting through parking lots, getting through traffic. So it's nice to have something that can facilitate what I actually need. There we go. First scrape. Breaking in those pegs. The other thing I should do is change to not slippery traction control. Seeing as it's not that wet this morning, didn't rain last night, or at least earlier this morning it didn't rain and it dried up. Actually finding it quite easy to cope with the wind, not having a windshield on here. The way the single seat is on this bike, I can scooch my butt back and then lean forward a little bit. Takes the pressure off of me having to hold onto the handlebars so hard. I can just lean forward and let the wind hold me up, and I can kind of regulate how much lean I want based on where I sit on the seat. So it's quite versatile that way. Yeah, that's actually quite nice and easy to cope. I like the style of having no windshield, or at least a very little windshield. And I've always found in previous bikes that I've had it's not really possible, because once you get that weight on you, you're just holding on. You get up to 110 and you just got to grip those handlebars to hold on so tight. And I'm not finding that with this bike, because I can change my seating position. I can get into that aggressive cafe racer kind of body position, and it's actually quite comfortable with the wind at that kind of speed. And then when I get to a lower speed, I can scooch forward a little bit on the seat, and I can have a more cruiser seating position, and the wind is not bothering me at 60, 70k. It's not that much of a bother, and so I can have that kind of comfort that I'd lacked in my previous bikes, and still have the style that I really want, with the no windshield or a very little kind of bug screen on there, if anything. It might be a little different once it gets a little cooler out. It's a nice day today. I'm reading 21.5 degrees out, so it's pretty warm this morning, and I didn't get out too terribly early on the road, so it might be a different story once I get a little cooler weather, and I might say, yeah, I gotta have that windshield. But for now, I'm kind of liking that I can have the style of no windshield and still be comfortable at those higher speeds. As long as I have the full face on, it shouldn't make much difference. So once I open up the face on this, if I had an open face helmet, or if I had a skull cap, which I really like, definitely at those speeds is really tough on your face, really tough on your eyes. I'd have to get some good wraparound sunglasses for wind protection, and possibly a face mask. The first maintenance on this, scheduled maintenance, they wanted at 1,000 kilometers. So the first 1,000 kilometers they put some kind of a goop in the oil. I know they told me, but it really seemed to me like it was some kind of oil substitute for the break-in period, and so you don't want to run that for any more than 1,000 kilometers and then put some actual real oil or standard kind of oil in it, and then they want to gap the valves on it. And that's at 1,000 kilometers. I'm at, after 2 days, I'm going to be over 100, so I should maybe book that for next week. My trip set here says 86 kilometers, which means I'm assuming I'm at about a half a tank of gas. While I'm in and about the city here as best I can, I want to run it down until my gas light comes on, and then I'll see about how many kilometers I have. That's important to do with a new bike. A lot of times when you have a bike you're used to, you already kind of know that, but when I'm on my first tank, I have no idea what kind of range. I'm sort of guessing by the numbers that I've got access to, by my fuel economy and by how big the tank is, about how much I should be able to go. But of course that's going to be different in a practical sense once I get riding how I ride versus how the dealership tells me they typically get. So there is a flashing light here on my dash, and the display says gear. It's a red flashing light, and I've read about it. They have it set so that at each gear there's a top out for what RPMs you should be at before you shift. They're set pretty conservative, I think, from the factory, based on what they want you to do for breaking in the engine. And after I get that break-in point, I'll probably jack it right up to red line for each gear, just so that I don't have to see that red light flash at me. I can kind of feel myself where it's comfortable, what power band I like to be in at any given spot, and it's different for different driving conditions. You're going downhill, going uphill, driving in traffic, driving on the road, wherever I want to be. that's kind of the point of driving a standard transmission, is to be able to choose that for yourself and not have a set sort of chart that says here's where you got to be when you're in this gear, here's where you got to be when you're at this RPM. And so after the it's nice to have that reminder now, but I'll probably jack it right up to near red line once I get past the break-in period, and I don't necessarily need to be reminded to keep it below 4,500 RPM or 5,000 RPM in gear 5. Now, yesterday I was getting about 5.3 liters per 100 kilometers. Today, in my practical sort of driving, I've gotten that down to 4.7, well below my Mini Cooper. The Mini Cooper is a pretty economical car, but this is about, 3 liters per 100 kilometers less than what that is. I remember driving the Triumphs, both of them, the Bonneville 120 and the Bobber. They were getting about 3.6 when I was driving them. I also remember driving the Z650 Kawasaki, and it's a 650cc, and I was getting like 8.6 out of it. So this is perhaps not as great a fuel economy as what the Triumphs are holding on to, but certainly better than some of the more sporty bikes that like to suck gas to produce that kind of horsepower. A bigger engine doing less work is something that I've always been told. You get a little bigger engine and you get a little better fuel economy from it, as long as you don't work it too hard. So that could be the situation, but getting under 5 liters per 100 kilometers definitely changes my monthly budget driving back and forth to work. It's a significant enough change that I'll see less fuel cost on my monthly budget during the summer. And it's fun. And that's my road trip to work. It's not a real long drive, but it is nice to get out of the car, get on a bike, and at least get that little bit of a two-wheel experience every day, to relax before work and blow off some tension after work. Really feels good.